Hi, folks. I'm Gary Ryan from Organisations That Matter. It's a great pleasure to be providing tonight's session for you on behalf of Monsu Caulfield. Tonight's session number 3, how to use creative tension to drive success at all of your club's activities. I'm really delighted to give this presentation and workshop with you tonight because, in fact, you're going to learn this tool is not only terrific for use within your clubs, it's going to be useful for every aspect of your life when it comes to creating success. So again, with Organisations That Matter, that's my organisation. I am an alum of Monsu and an alum of Monash University. I work in the high performance space, so I do executive coaching, work with really large organisations through to city councils, through to government agencies, work in the tertiary sector, and again, also in the corporate sector as well. And it's a delight to be able to bring you the content that I actually use with all of the folk in those organisations. So the quick welcome and introduction that we're going through now, I will explain what creative tension is. I'm going to help you to understand how to apply the tool for long-term and short-term goal setting, and we'll apply it to your club settings and anything else you want to apply it to. Will help you to understand the importance of following the 3-step structure. And it's really disciplined to follow this 3-step structure from the creative tension tool. How to apply the model specifically to event planning, because I know in clubs you do a lot of events. Clearly, those events are currently online, but it's applicable both for online and in-person events when you get the opportunity to do that, and then advertising the next session in this 8-part program. And welcome to our new guests this evening, Cho and Cho, who are joining us for the first time in this series. You'll also get sent the link to the playlist of all of the recordings for this session. So in really simple terms, think of an elastic band with regard to creative tension. And I'm going to stop the share there, and I'm just going to explain this to you on the screen. Okay, so with creative tension, imagine an elastic band. At the top of the elastic band is your vision or your goal, and at the bottom of the elastic band is your current reality or your current situation as it relates to whatever the topic is for your goal. If you have a gap between your vision or goal and your current reality, and you were to place an elastic band around that gap, as I've done here, that elastic band is in tension. And in fact, while it's in tension, it has a form of energy built into it. Do any of you know what that energy is? What's the energy? It starts with the letter P. Might take you back to your secondary school studies. Use the chat function if you like, or unmute yourself, that's fine. What's the letter P for the type of energy that's set up in this structure when the elastic band's on stretch like this? Does anyone know the type of energy? Starts with the letter P. It hasn't happened yet. Rhymes with torrential. Thank you, Ritu. Potential energy. So when you have this set up, gives you potential energy, which is awesome. Because what we want to do is we want to take that potential energy and turn it into a different type of energy, which starts with the letter K, right? Starts with the letter K. See if anyone can get that energy. And that's energy for action, because we want to bring our current reality toward our vision. Does anyone know what the letter K type energy is? Now, who thought you were going to be talking about some science here tonight, eh? So we've got, yes, Cho, spot on, kinetic energy. Thank you, okay? Thank you, Ritsu and Cho. So we've got potential energy when we set up the structure of creative tension that we then want to turn into kinetic energy, which gives us the energy for action. And as we're getting closer and closer and closer towards our vision, we're actually reducing energy in the system. Now, from a whole of club perspective, you always want to have something in the future to which you are striving to achieve. You always want to have some level of creative tension, right? So if you think of a year, you might have a whole year set up of different events and things that you're doing, and each one of them on their own actually would have their own elastic band, if that makes sense. And while that little elastic band might finish, the overall year that you're striving towards, and even beyond that year, if you're thinking beyond your year with some long-term goals, you're actually progressing all the way so you don't end up in a situation where you have no gap between your future and your present. When you have no gap between your future and your present, you have no energy for action. Does that sort of make sense? So creative tension on a personal level is really important and unbelievably useful. And I would argue, even through these most extraordinarily difficult times, to have some level of creative tension in your life. So at the moment, for example, on a personal level for me, I'm finishing my second book. And the goal is to have my second book, called Disruption Leadership Matters, Lessons for Leaders from the Pandemic, released by the end of November. Okay. Now, I've written 32,000 words and the maximum is supposed to be 35,000. So I have done a lot of work with this creative tension. Beyond the book, though, is a whole range of programs and other activities I'll be doing that are leveraging the content of the book. So it's not just in relation to the book, there's other bigger things that it's related to on a personal level. I want to show you some clear examples of how creative tension works. And I'm going to use an academic example here. When I did 4 subjects at Monash University through the Monash Business School of a Doctor of Business Administration program, one of the subjects was quantitative research methods. Quantitative research methods is fundamentally mathematics, okay? It's statistics. I was working full-time, had a young family, and at the time was also extending my home and running marathons. Does that sound like a busy life? Right? Working full-time, young family, extending my house, running marathons, and doing doctoral level studies. But because I was doing doctoral level studies, and my bigger goal with my studies was that I wanted to be able to understand high performance so that I could then leverage that into, at the time, my potential business that I hadn't yet started. Understanding the full picture? Thumbs up if you are. Okay, cool. Right. Now, before I tell you what my history with mathematics was, what my current reality was with mathematics, when I got to that subject, what goal in terms of an outcome do you think I set myself? You can use the chat function, unmute yourself. If you were me in that situation, in that context, should have been aiming for a pass, a credit, because it was actually a graded subject. So a pass, a credit, a distinction, or a high distinction. What ought I have been aiming for before I even did one class? What do you think, folks?
I would say distinction. That would be already pretty ambitious.
Okay, thank you. Sure, aim for a distinction, right? Anyone else? And that would be pretty ambitious. I love that phrase too. Right?
Very straight for HD, aim high.
Yeah, absolutely. Aim for an HD, Kieran, right? So I actually did. I aimed for an HD. Now I'm going to tell you what my current reality was with mathematics. My current reality with mathematics was the last time I did any formal mathematics was only in year 11. When I did it, it was called Maths A. And the teacher at the end of the year gave me 55% as a pass. And I'm not sure I actually earned 55% with my performance in the final exam. Beyond year 9, I was not, you can relate, Chal, right? I was not a mathematician. In terms of talent and passion, it fitted with neither of those two spaces for me. So it was neither a talent nor a passion. However, because of my bigger reason for doing it, can any of you remember what I said my biggest reason for doing this doctoral program was? What was I trying to learn about that I could then leverage into something? Can any of you remember what I said?
Was it to set up your business?
Yes, Charles, it was about my business. And can you remember what my business was meant to be about, which it is actually about, which I've been running for 15 years now?
High performance.
Yes, Kieran, great listening. This is going to be great for Thursday's session. Folks are listening that you're both doing okay. So despite everything else in my current reality, I set myself the goal of a high distinction. People that know me well said I was crazy. You're mad. It's too hard. You can't do it. It's not realistic. Who's ever had people say things to you when you told them you're going to do something that seemed crazy to them? Right? Absolutely. Thanks, Joe. To me, I've learned in my life, that's a good thing. If people tell you you're crazy, you're onto something useful. You're onto something important, because they use a psychological term called projectioning when they're projecting onto you their own fears and concerns, which actually relates to the self-talk session we did in session number 2. So for Chow and Cho, I really encourage you to go and watch those videos once we send you the link to be able to do that. Okay. So now that's not enough. No worries, Cho. That's not enough. You've got to then do the work. So what I did is what I call smart, hard work. I let the Professor Rob Hindman, who's an absolute legend of a teacher, know what my goal was, what my situation was. Now, I asked him, did he know anyone who could tutor someone like me to get an HD while I was doing the classes with him? Now, it's a really important question, because not being talented with mathematics and not being a passion of mine, but I still had this goal, the type of tutor, do you think the skills would need to be different than if I was a mathematician type? Absolutely. I can see you nodding. It's a different set of skills. So it was a very deliberate and specific question, and he actually did know the answer, and it was an international student who was actually in the class, and she was quite happy to help me. Now, I was very, very fortunate. At that level, there was only 8 students in the class. But then I actually had to make sure that I was on top of the workload. I kept asking questions, which I asked the professor, would it be okay if I asked lots of questions? Because there'll be questions I do not know the answer to. I will have done the reading. I will have done the work. There'll be genuine questions, which you'll learn about on Thursday night in Thursday night session. And I did the work. Would any of you like to know the score that I got, the mark that I achieved?
Surely an HD.
I got an HD. My actual mark was 93. Now, I'm still not a mathematician, right? And it's still not a passion. But through using this tool, I was able to do what I needed to do to create the future that I wanted. See, creative tension is called creative future because we get to create a future that has not yet happened. This is why it is so powerful. This is why it relates very closely to the second session we did on self-talk, because your self-talk contributes to your ability to actually do creative tension. Now, I want to go back to the presentation now, okay, and show you the structure of this. So when you use creative tension, you must start at the top of the elastic band first. So if you're going to do something for your club, or you have a picture of the future for your club, you must start there first, and you must describe what the outcome that you're wanting to achieve looks like. And we'll come to a little bit more detail about outcomes with some slight differences for long-term goals and shorter-term goals. A lot of what you're going to be working on, of course, is more short-term. So what is the outcome you desire? Now, I encourage you to imagine both quantitative outcomes, so outcomes regarding numbers. So what would be a number outcome for something you might be doing in a club, folks? Anyone happy to unmute yourself? What would be a number outcome that would be relevant to anything you might be doing in a club?
Maybe increasing the number of the members.
Yes, simple one, right? Increasing the number of the members, right? Who's got another one? Joe.
Making a certain amount of profit by the end of the year.
So it could be making some surplus in your case, because I would assume that you're not-for-profit organisations, so you could make a surplus, but it's about, yeah, we've got more money coming in rather than going out, and that's a number, exactly right. Now, equally important that nearly always gets forgotten is you need to also imagine qualitative outcomes. So when I imagined that HD for that quantitative research method subject, I also imagined what will I have learned? What will I be able to leverage? So I wanted to be able to understand how quantitative research worked. So when I saw it, or when I saw it referenced, I could actually judge whether it was actually valid research or just another piece of percentage data that newspapers and television shows like to tell us to convince us about something when they only spoke to 10 people, right? I wanted to understand the difference between proper research and not proper research, okay? Which was more qualitative rather than quantitative. Yes, the number says I could do well with my assignments in the exam. It didn't necessarily mean I really could retain or understand anything. Understand the difference? So what would be an example of a qualitative outcome for any activities with your clubs? So yes, now imagine you've got the extra members. Yes, you've made the profit. What would be a qualitative? Now, qualitative is usually comments or things people say, is a simple way to think of qualitative outcomes. In regard to your clubs, what could be a qualitative outcome that you could strive to achieve when you're imagining success for something you're doing? So Cho, for example, if it was in relation to that financial performance by the end of the year, what would people within the club say about the fact we've got money in the bank? What would be things you might hear them say?
This club must be doing really well. I have a very positive reputation.
This club's doing really, really well. This club's financially secure. This club's got the ability to put things on the next year. You could imagine people saying that, right? Okay. What about if it was we achieved that, you know, we've got those club members. What could be some outcomes? So one thing's having members, but they might not be active. Now you could have another number of active members, but then they might be active, but still not that happy. What would be some stuff you might hear if they were happy, active members?
They're enjoying our events.
Yeah, spot on, Charles. They'd be enjoying your events. And you might even have some commentary about, imagine if they're enjoying our events, actually, what would be some of the things we would hear them say about the events while they're in the event, so that when you're in the event and the committee's in the event, you're wandering around. It might be online at the moment, or it might be in real life when we get to do that again. But you actually have your ears already tuned into hearing people say things. And it's fascinating and exciting and gives you goosebumps when you actually hear them say the very things you had imagined they might say if it was successful. It's absolutely amazing how this can work. And when you get your committee together to imagine these things together, imagine the quantitative outcomes, imagine the qualitative outcomes. But you got to do this before you do everything else. And even if it seems crazy, the question you got to ask yourself is this: do we want this outcome? Do we want this outcome? Now, you're part of Monsu Caulfield, and last year I had the privilege to be able to work with the student president and the leaders of Monsu Caulfield to develop their brand new strategic plan. One of the items on that strategic plan was around sustainability. Now, they completed the strategic plan throughout the last half of last year. It was ratified in February of this year. Just last week, Monsu did a presentation to the university on the things it's doing proactively around sustainability, because the university had heard about what Monsu Caulfield's doing and wanted to hear from Monsu and wanted to learn from Monsu. Monsu's this big, the university is this big, and the university wanted to learn from Monsu Caulfield. And Monsu Caulfield had imagined a future where the university would want to learn from it. And guess what, folks? It's happened about 2 years earlier than they had anticipated. So often when you set up creative tension, it can come faster than you imagine if you focus on what you want first, right? So let's practice. In the Miro board, there are a range of practice boards there for you. So I would like you to pick any one of the practice boards, please. And Sadman, for you, if you can't access that, please just use the chat function. And what I'd like you to do, so each of
All
you,
right, thank you.
sorry, you've got it, have you?
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
Oh, fabulous. So if you move across to one of the boards, so just put your name, grab your name, folks, from the name board and just drag it across to the top where it says name. So you can see if someone else has already got that board. Okay. Don't worry about it, whether it's fitting 100% or not, or you can try to resize your name, etc. What I'd like you to do, please, is think of something where creative tension might be useful for you. If it's with regard to your club, that's fabulous. If it's just personal, if it's academic, it doesn't matter. Find something in your life, and I would like you to practice identifying some outcomes. So think of quantitative and qualitative outcomes. Okay, so you identify what it is that you're focusing on. So you have to have a focus first, of course. So my story, I used an academic achievement. I also told you the story about something I'm working on at the moment with my second book. So it's got the name, Disruption Leadership Matters is what I'm working on there. Now, Charles, if you grab the sticky notes, they might be a little bit easier than the text box. I'll leave it in your hands though. If you want to use the text box, that's fine. So T is for the text, and the square with the bottom right-hand corner folded up is the sticky notes. There you go. All right. Now, if anyone's got a question, please ask me. If you go, gee, I think I've got something in my mind, but I can't get started, because you're going to notice some natural tendencies. Some of you, for example, are going to find that you're actually really, really good at the strategies and action section. Some of you might find that you're really, really good at the current reality section, and some of you might find that you're really, really good at this desired outcome section. What we want to do is pull all three together and build the discipline of following the 3 steps. Okay, so Alina's got having a successful showcase. So then think about what are the quantitative and qualitative outcomes that would be part of that. Okay, if you've got so selling out the tickets, therefore it would mean you've got a number of tickets. So there would be a number of tickets that you're going to sell. So in this instance, you could actually be that specific. 50 tickets, 100 tickets, 300 tickets, whatever the number is. Okay. So we've got organized. Yes, go.
How specific should these outcomes be?
Okay, great question, Kieran, which I was going to go to a little earlier, a little later, but we'll go there now. Actually, I will show you right now, because I'm happy to jump around with the presentation to
Sorry.
go. No, not at all. Don't long-term and short-term goals. Okay, so whoops, that's not where I wanted to go. And this is fine, so don't apologize. I'm happy to jump around, okay? So for longer term goals, the 3 basic questions are going to remain the same. I understand we're still just at the top question at the moment. So of the 3, we're still just practicing the first one. But for long-term goals, it's more about the direction that you want to go, and minimum numbers can help, but the direction's clear. So as an example, when I first started my 1-person business in 2007, I had a long-term goal that within 3 years, I would be working with at least 3 billion-dollar plus organizations that could include for-profit, government agency, or not-for-profit organizations. Now, within 3 years, I actually ended up working with 5. Okay, Monash University being one. All right. So, but I didn't say the specific industry to start with. The parameter was billion-dollar organizations, and I left that as broad as possible. So for long-term goals, you want to be clear with your direction. So $1 billion sort of represented size, right? And I've got a whole bunch of reasons why I wanted to be working at least with some organizations of that size, which is actually about influence. So you got that direction, but you want to leave open 1,000 possibilities to create that direction. Another example, I had an executive or a potential executive I was working with that had a long-term goal of being a CEO. Initially, of Disneyland, of Disney Corporation, I should say, not Disneyland. All right. Now, what's the problem with a long-term goal like that? What could be a quick problem about the specificity of a long-term goal that in that case, that was within 10 years, I'm going to be the CEO of Disney Corporation. What's the problem with it? Any guesses?
I guess you kind of have like tunnels. Sorry, Joe, you go.
No, you go first.
You kind of have tunnel vision to get to that point, and if you don't get it, then you feel like you haven't succeeded.
Yeah, the risk, exactly. The risk of failure is very, very high because how many CEOs of Disneyland is there? Or Disney Corporation, I should say. There's one, all right? Now, what we did with that person was identify the characteristics that attracted them to the Disney role and identified, in fact, thousands of organizations across the world that could fit those characteristics. So it was about the ability of leading a very large organization in the creative space, right? Of actually being the most senior leader in the organization, and so on and so on and so on. They wanted an organization that had global impact. There's actually thousands of them, right? So the direction's still clear, but the opportunity to create success is therefore still. Now, Disney Corporation was still one of them. It wasn't eliminated. But sometimes with long-term goals, we can be so specific, we set ourselves up for failure. So with long-term goals, set the direction, okay? And again, with the presentation, Sadman, I've got your message there. I understand it's absolutely not easy, okay? So please don't stress. Just feel free to use the chat function and I can read out that way for you. So, I've got some examples there. By December 2024, we will have implemented a minimum of 5 sustainability programs. By December 2024, we will have a minimum of 100 engaged club alumni, because maybe for some of you, you haven't thought about, we've got these people involved with our club, then they graduate, and then we do nothing with them. We don't have anything to do with them, yet they might be able to provide assistance and services to our current club members. Like, please don't do anything that I'm suggesting just because I'm suggesting it, but that's just an example of something that might be long-term. As compared to, say, short-term goals, in short-term goals, the closer it is in time and space, the more specific you need to be, Kieran. So that's the key message there. The closer it is in time and space, you go from direction to specificity. So with my semester goal for that subject, I was very specific. I want to get an HD and I want to have learned this, 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 and this, right? Okay, and from both the quantitative and the qualitative outcomes, I was very specific, all right? So when you've got an event that's coming up in a short space and time, I would encourage you to be much more specific with the outcomes that you want to achieve with that, okay? Is that helpful? Terrific. So I'll let you get back to the Miro board, folks. So just stay at the top. Don't do anything yet in the other 2 sections. I've got to teach you the other parts yet, all right? So having positive comments from, yeah, so Alina, again, I would actually get you to imagine what would those positive comments actually be? Like, just even if it's just one, imagine what you would expect people to say. You're like them, right? You know your members, you know how they speak. So if it's slang, it's slang. If it's, the buzzwords of today, then that's what they would say. If they were delighted, then absolutely, pop that in. Ritsu, you've got being able to successfully produce an event, which is the ball. So people in community event could turn to recommendations for people to bring awareness for the club. Spot on. Probably you would have some quantitative data there. So that could be things like that you've run the event maybe at a surplus, going on from Cho's comment earlier, and it might be a minimum surplus. It might not have to be a big surplus, but if you're running at a surplus, it's not running at a loss. So that means it's at least putting something back into the bank for you. It could be a minimum number of members and friends in attending the ball. It could also include non-members that are potential members. So we would have a minimum of 30 potential members attending the session that are current students and could become members into the future, as an example. Or we've used the ball itself to recruit them as members. So we've got 30 new members, might be another more specific and more relevant goal for you in that case, right? As Kieran did, folks, please ask questions, right? So here, yep, Elena, okay, Kieran, okay, having consistent presence on campus and online, so we recognise and people know. So how would you know you had that consistent presence? So what would be the outcome that would tell you that we've got that consistent presence, both on campus and online, that's recognizable? So sometimes, you know, it's not easy in one short session like this to think of those answers, but they're the questions. As I be as clear about how you would actually know what's the outcome. So the reason why this section says desired outcome, my apologies, folks. I realized just now for some silly reason that my boards are saying step 3 at the top there. It should say step 1. I'm going to go, I will fix that later. So on all the boards where it says step 3, it should say step 1, okay? At the very top, desired outcome. Desired outcome should be step 1. I don't know how that happened, but there we go. We'll fix that afterwards after you've had a go at working up there. Okay, Cho, good work. Qualitative, more students from major or alternative majors. Okay, awesome. Diversity, increase the diversity of the membership. So you might even be able to turn that into some quantitative data, Cho, in terms of, yeah, how much diversity, how many students from different clubs have joined us. And that's where the use of the term minimum can be really, really useful. Set a minimum of which, if you got that minimum, you'd go, wow, that's awesome. But equally, it doesn't stop it being as high as the sky, okay? And Kieran, okay, good work. Selling all our 50 tickets, great. Having positive comments from members, yeah, I love the performances. Great, Elena, awesome. Okay, let's keep going with the presentation. Again, unmute yourself, ask questions at any stage. Remember, everything on those boards, and I will fix them up so it says step 1 at the top before I save it. But everything on those boards is able to be saved and shared with you at the end of the session. Okay, let's just pop back up here. Okay, so the second step is what's your current reality? You go to the bottom of the elastic band, folks, okay? So in the second step, you go to the bottom of the elastic band and you identify what it is that is your current reality in relation to whatever your goal is. So step 1, aim for your goal. Step 2 is what's your current reality. And that's where I shared things like year 11 maths, 55%, not sure that I really earned it, not a passion, not a talent, right? You have to be brutally honest. You've got to identify the good, the bad, and the ugly in your current reality. Some people see their current reality worse than it is. That doesn't help you, right? You have to find the good, even if it's not great. There's going to be some good somewhere. Some other people, they look at things with rose-colored glasses and they can't see the things in their current reality that actually aren't that great. We've only got 10 members at the moment and only 3 of them ever do anything. You know, that if that's your current reality, then you got to start there. And this is why this matters. If I said that tomorrow, let's assume it was possible without all the restrictions we've got, right? If I said that tomorrow I wanted to be in Sydney and my plan, my current reality, I said I'm in Adelaide. Could I come up with a great plan to get me from Adelaide to Sydney, do you think? Would it be possible to do that? 100%, of course I could. But if I'm actually in Melbourne, is my plan going to work? It's not going to work, right? You have to be as accurate with your current reality as you can without overcooking it. But, you know, simple principle, what's the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? In relation to whatever it is that you're doing at the moment. So I'll give you a moment to just add maybe just one post-it note to your current reality. And again, Sadman, if you like, you can just type in the chat function. So think of your future that you'd like to aim for, whatever it might be. And we've been sharing some of the examples on the Miro board that you can obviously see. And then Sadman, just write number 2. Okay, great work. So what's your current reality? There we go. Now, this includes if you've already done work. So remember, I told you about my book, and I told you that I've already written 32,000 words in relation to the 35,000 words, which is about a 180-page book, which is what I want to limit the book at. And there's a bunch of reasons why that's the sort of the limit on the number of pages. Okay. But my current reality now is 32,000 words. When I first started writing the book, my current reality was 0 words. It was just an idea, okay, in my head. So it depends on where you are. You may have already been traveling some of this journey with your events and goals that you've been writing down already. So it's your current reality actually over time should be moving towards your goal. So you may already be on the journey for that with what you're doing right now. Now, again, notice that the way I've set these frames up, I use this model all the time. Top third of the page, what's the outcome I'm striding for? Bottom third of the page, what's my current reality? Middle third, what are the strategies and actions? And I literally draw my page like an elastic band. So the bit in the middle is the energy that we're trying to turn into kinetic energy to get us there. Okay. So again, think of some good things, some things that could be, maybe are a bit challenging at the moment. We're stuck online, have a lack of an inconsistent online presence. Okay, that's fine. It is what it is, okay? Great work. Oh, you're getting this really well. Good positive reputation, quite professional. Bad, lack of diversity in terms of events on offer. Okay, we're just being honest. Low attendance of online events, inactive members, insufficient funds to organise a physical event, potentially good speakers. Now, that's a great one too. Okay, Joel, like we've got potentially good speakers. So we've obviously been in communication possibly with some, and on you go there, professional and enthusiastic team. All right, fabulous. Thanks, Joel. Thanks, Cho. All right, this is great. All right, now let's keep going. So the middle part is, what are we going to do? What are we going to do to get us from here to here? Now, we always, which we learned in the second session on self-talk, and that model is we need to do some research. When I say research, I don't mean necessarily academic research. In fact, rarely will it be academic research. We need to find important things out, right? So if it's an event that's a physical event, we're going to find out what event spaces are available that match our budget. We're going to find out if they're available. We're going to find out if there's someone playing or speaking. Who are they? What do they cost? Are they available? All these sorts of things have to get found out as an example. So we have to do some research. And then once we've done that research, that will lead us to working out what's the smart, hard work that we need to do in relation to moving now from our current reality to our desired outcome. What are the things that we've got to do? So if it was that we want to be able to be aware of the qualitative feedback at a live event that people said, we'd actually have our members of the committee prepared to be able to use their note function on their phone, that whenever you hear some comments about people's experience during the event, you just quickly note it down, and then we'll collate them after the event. Like that could be done live. When you could go to the bathroom and quickly note down some things that you'd heard some people just saying. You might even be in the bathroom when you hear them possibly, right? Okay, these things make it real, and you don't have to create some amazing system. You could just use the devices and resources we've got and keep it as simple as possible and still collect the data as an example, okay? So that could be the smart hard work. Then, of course, we have to work out specifically who's going to do what and by when. And so that everyone in the team has absolute role clarity. Each of us knows what the other's doing for the puzzle we're putting together that's going to create the outcome that we're striving for, right? Now, when we've got that level of clarity, it makes it a hell of a lot easier for people to come together and do what they're going to do. And that, of course, doesn't mean that you're not going to have some bumps in the road along the way, which we'll talk about in a second. So if you go back to your Miro boards, some of you already started, you can already get started there in terms of what might be some things specific to the area of focus that you've chosen to work on tonight. Could be some actions or strategies. What it could be at the very minimum, what could be some things you need to find out? Now, this is very specific. What goes in this middle section is 100% related to moving from your current reality towards that goal you've set. It can't just be random actions. It's a context for your actions that are set by the outcome you want and your current reality. Because we don't want to be making a great plan to get from Adelaide to Sydney when we're not in Adelaide, right? You've got to have your actions and strategies specific to your current reality as it stands. Again, all that might be happening for you right now is going, this is making me realize we've got a few things we need to find out. That's fine. If that's all you come up with right now, what do we need to research or find out? That will then inform the actions that you could be taking. Again, you may, like me, already be doing actions. That's fine. This might be making you realize, we've forgotten to do a couple of things. Maybe we're not all as clear at the goal as we could. So maybe one of the actions is to re-clarify the outcome that we're trying to achieve. If you've already got this elastic band moving and you're sitting there saying, I'm not sure everyone on the committee is on the same page with what we're trying to achieve here, let's just press pause and do that work. Let's just re-clarify what the outcomes are that we're trying to achieve. Then we can reset. Okay, now we've got that clear. What do we need to find out? What do we need? Can we just re-clarify what the roles and goals and actions are that each of us are doing? That could be just 2 simple actions on your Miro boards this evening. And again, please feel free to unmute yourself or ask any questions at any time. Now, Sadman, just feel free to unmute yourself. It might be just checking that this is all making sense for you at the moment. Well, given I appreciate that you've been open about the Miro board.
Yeah, I'm actually following. It's so yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm actually not at home, so that's why I'm having to just listen to it. I'm not being able to be much active. Yeah.
That's absolutely fine, Sadman. Again, coming from, I'm just delighted that you're in Bangladesh and you're still choosing to get involved and you're still participating with your club at Monsu Caulfield. I mean, it's wonderful that you're giving up your time despite some of the connecting challenges that you've got. And of course, you've got the link to the video that you'll get sent as well to review tonight's session, plus the output from this Miro board. In fact, I'll keep the Miro board open for you as well, Sadman, so that when you get the opportunity to get on a computer, you can actually go and have a play in there. So I'll leave that open for everyone. Okay. Now, has anyone got any questions about what you're coming up with there? I'm seeing terrific. You're coming up with some actions. Fabulous. Well done. Chao, Cho, Kieran, Alina, Ritu, well done. Fabulous. Now, again, see if you can identify at least something you still need to find out, okay? What's some research you need to do? Because it's a really important point. So again, the really important process is that we start at the top of the elastic band. This can be a bit uncomfortable for some of us because we're doer type people. Often clubs attract people who are doers, get things done, which is really important. But the danger with sometimes getting things done when you're planning is that you're actually not clear, or certainly not collectively clear, on actually the outcome that you're all striving to achieve. And that's where creative tension can be really useful in following the 3 steps of starting with your outcome, your desired outcome first, and then working on your current reality. And once you've got your current reality clear, You then work out what you need to find out. And then finally, what are the steps and actions you're going to take and who is going to do what? It might seem like it might take a lot of time, but you'd be amazed that even in just 1 to 2 hours maximum, how much you can achieve following this 3-step process. Right, just a quick check. Are there any questions from any of you right now? All right, let's keep going. Okay, so we've got our 3 steps. Now, one of my passions is motorcycle riding. That's actually me on one of my motorbikes down at Phillip Island. That was actually earlier this year when there was a little window where we could get back out on the track. If you've ever ridden a motorbike, you will notice where my head is looking. It's not looking straight over the front of the bike. I'm obviously going around a left-hand corner there, and even though the bike looks like it's going straight, it's actually turning left quite sharply. When you're on a motorbike, you go to where you look. It's a really powerful metaphor that lines up with creative tension. You go to where you focus. If I'm ever going around a corner in the real world and there happens to be a vehicle on my side of the road and I focus on that vehicle, because you go to where you focus, where am I going to end up, folks? Where do you think I would end up? It's a bit scary. I'm going to end up crashing into that vehicle. So even when there's danger, I've actually got to look to where I want to go, because if I do that, I'm more of a chance to get to where I want to be safely than if I get fixated on where I want. So one of the things with creative tension is this: focus on what you want, not what you don't want. If you focus on what you don't want, you'll probably get it. Now, there are no guarantees in life, but you must focus on where you want to go, not where you don't want to go. Yes, of course, you need to be aware of the failures and the dangers, but if you focus on it and make that part of your self-talk, you'll actually probably create it. Of course, there's no guarantees in life. Creative tension doesn't guarantee success, but it sure as hell increases the chances that you will get it. It significantly increases the chances that you'll get it by focusing on where you want to go. Okay? If you focus on what you don't want, you'll actually increase the chances of actually creating what you don't want. People go into subjects. I've seen this happen. I'm going to fail. I'm going to fail. I'm going to fail. They fail. They're in a relationship. I'm going to get dumped. I'm going to get dumped. They get dumped. Hopefully that's not true for any of you, of course, right? But it's amazing how often you see this happen. When people focus on what they don't want, they get, I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to lose my job. They lose their job, right? It's amazing how often it happens. So constructive self-talk is essential for your success in using this tool. I will be the best at this event that we can be today. We will be the best at putting this on that we can be today. Remember that constructive self-talk. So we've looked at our long-term and short-term goals already. So we've had that conversation. All right. So we've had a go at using all of these 3 steps. Okay. Now, what about those roadblocks? Because they do come along. And the beauty of roadblocks is this: they cause you to reassess, do I really want the outcome we have previously identified? That's what a roadblock does. It forces you to ask the question, do I want this outcome? Now, just recently in the June storms here in Melbourne, you might be aware of the story where a young couple that were engaged with each other, and they were able to get some very brief telecommunications to each other where, in this case, the female was able to tell her partner, who in this case was male, where she was, but then they lost contact with each other. And he drove up the mountains, of course, got confronted by trees across the road. He took a chainsaw with him, and he spent 11 hours chainsawing his way to his fiancée, and then got her and took her back to his car and took her home. Right? Now, he had a lot of stuff in his road, and he said, I'm coming, and she believed him and trusted him and stayed put. And it was one of their deals when they communicated, is don't move anywhere, because otherwise I won't know where you are. Okay. So if your answer is yes, when you get a roadblock, then all you have to do is, it just means your current reality's now changed. You have to reassess what you're going to do, but get on and keep doing it, right? What's the new things you need to find out? What might be the new smart hard work you need to do when a roadblock gets in your way? And you know what, folks, before you even had this session tonight, the last 18 months of our lives has given us roadblock after roadblock. And if you think about the things that you've still been doing, you've already been doing this. I would argue this is actually not new for you. Those of you on this call, this isn't new for you. You innately know what I'm talking about because you've already been doing it. All I'm doing now is giving you some words and some structure to follow, to leverage. And as you go forward in your lives and with your clubs, you know now, as part of your current reality, part of the good is you've actually dealt with roadblocks and you've found a way and you've made things still happen. Okay. You leverage that current reality that you've now got from the last year and a half or so, you know, because innovation loves roadblocks. Innovation is born out of roadblocks. And remember, in the first session, we talked about those two types of innovation, of disruptive innovation. And what was the second one, folks? Feel free to unmute yourself or use the chat. What was the second one? Disruptive innovation and
Incremental.
Incremental. Great work. Good listening once again. Okay, those two types of innovation. So to an event, again, what you would do for an event is that you would focus on what are the qualitative outcomes and quantitative outcomes you want to achieve. What's your current reality? Have you done it before? Do you know anyone who has done it before? Have you been a participant even? So maybe you weren't on the committee, but you're a participant. You know, what was your experience of that type of event? They're all relevant questions. What do you need to find out? Venue, performers, catering. What else do you need to find out? What's the smart hard work that you need to do for the session? And again, who will do what, by when? Now, this is key. Deliberately using committee member strengths for those tasks, but equally deliberately using the opportunity to develop skills and competencies for your team members. Maybe you've got a team member that's never done the public speaking part and really wants to develop that skill. And maybe you're really good at it and maybe you've had lots of opportunities. You might deliberately choose to mentor them, but let them actually do the public speaking, because then they get the benefit of being on your club committee and getting the opportunity to develop that important skill for them. And you facilitated that happening. All right? It's not always just about having the best people do the tasks that relate to their skills. Does this logic make sense? Like, it's a really wonderful benefit we can give the committee members and others outside the committee of deliberately developing skills, assuming that's part of their own personal creative tension that they want to develop that skill. If they don't have personal creative tension to develop that skill, it's probably not going to work. Okay, you can't make someone want to do something. You can influence them, but you can't make them. All right. Hopefully that makes a bit of sense. So next session is next Thursday, 2 days time. It's again from 7 to 8 p.m. It's number 4, developing high quality conversation skills and how to use them for the benefit of your club. This will impact positively every aspect of your life. To actually do what we've been able to do, to host the conversations that you'll actually need to have to determine outcomes, current reality, and strategies and actions, you're going to need this skill set. And you're going to learn the quality conversation model, how you can use that model in every conversation, how you can use the quality of your conversations and have a direct impact on everything you do in your life, from university to the family life, to your club life, to every other aspect of it, including when you get the opportunity to go for interviews and jobs, and learning how to leverage this skill for personal and professional success. Those of you that are new, Chao and Cho, if you use LinkedIn, please feel free to reach out to me and connect. You don't have to follow. I will absolutely accept your connections. Everyone else on the calls are aware of that already. And I'd like to thank you all for coming along. I'm going to stay on the line a little bit longer at the end to take any specific questions with the recording turned off, if you like. And Once again, I'd like to thank you all for coming along, and I look forward to working with you next time.